The Seattle rain hammered against the gallery windows as I arranged my latest watercolor series. Soft landscapes that whispered of peace I'd never known. 3 months since I'd fled Chicago. 3 months since discovering the man I'd loved was a monster wearing a wedding ring. I stepped back to examine the hanging, my reflection catching in the darkened glass. Faith Morrison now, not Faith Carver. I'd reclaimed my maiden name the day I arrived in this city of gray skies and endless rain. The woman staring back looked thinner, paler. Grief had carved hollows beneath my cheekbones that makeup couldn't quite hide. "Faith, there's someone here to see you." My gallery manager's voice made me turn. Marcus stood in the doorway, his expression carefully neutral, in that way that meant trouble had arrived. My heart hammered. Flynn. He'd found me. But the man who emerged from the shadows wasn't my husband. Leonard Briggs, the divorce attorney I'd hired, carried a leather portfolio that seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. His silver hair was rain-dampened, his expensive suit rumpled from travel. "Mr. Briggs? I thought we were handling everything remotely." My voice came out steadier than I felt. We were. He glanced at Marcus, who took the hint and disappeared. "Until your husband finally agreed to sign." "But there's a condition, Mrs. Carver." "Morrison," I corrected sharply. "What condition?" "He'll sign immediately, no contest, generous settlement, everything we asked for. But he wants to see you. 1 meeting, face to face." The floor seemed to tilt beneath my feet. I gripped the edge of my work table, feeling the familiar ache that had been my constant companion lately. This bone-deep exhaustion that no amount of sleep could cure. Absolutely not. Tell him. He's already here, in Seattle. He flew in this morning and he's waiting at the Fairmont Olympic. He says he'll wait as long as it takes. Of course he would. Flynn Carver didn't understand the word no. I'd learned that during 3 years of marriage, watching him command rooms with nothing but his presence, seeing how even hardened men flinched when he spoke. I'd thought it was because he was a successful businessman, a real estate developer who'd built an empire from nothing. What a beautiful lie that had been. "Mrs. Morrison, I know this is difficult." Briggs's voice softened with something like sympathy. "But he holds all the cards here. If he decides to contest the divorce, drag this out through the courts, involve investigators, he won't find anything. Because there was nothing to find except a woman who'd been stupid enough to marry a stranger she met in a bookstore, who'd been charmed by his rough edges and the way he looked at art like it mattered, who'd abandoned her teaching position and her small apartment and her careful life for what she thought was love. Perhaps not, but the process would be expensive, lengthy, and very public. 1 meeting, Faith. Give him that, and you're free." Free. The word tasted like ash. I'd fled in the middle of the night 3 months ago, after overhearing a conversation I was never meant to hear. Flynn in his study, discussing a shipment with men whose names I recognized from crime reports, detailing how to handle a problem with the Rossetti family, a problem that ended with someone dead, speaking in the cold, clinical tone of a man for whom violence was simply business. The floor had creaked beneath my feet. Flynn's head had snapped up, his dark eyes meeting mine through the cracked door. And in that moment, I'd seen the truth written across his face. Not surprise at being caught, but calculation about what to do with me now that I knew. I'd run. Grabbed my purse, my phone, nothing else. Driven through the night while my hands shook so badly I could barely grip the wheel. Remembered my twin sister Hope, 19 years old forever, caught in crossfire between rival gangs. Remembered standing over her grave, swearing I'd never let that world touch me again. What cosmic joke that I'd married into it. 1 hour, I heard myself say. I'll give him 1 hour. Then he signs and I never see him again. Briggs nodded, relief evident in his features. Tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. I'll be present throughout. After he left, I locked the gallery door and sank onto the floor among my paintings. Seattle had been supposed to be my sanctuary, the place where I'd rebuild the life I'd abandoned when I married Flynn. I'd sold exactly 3 paintings in 3 months, enough to pay rent on my tiny apartment, but not enough to live. The medical bills were piling up too, from the battery of tests trying to diagnose why I felt like I was dying by inches. My phone buzzed. Dr. Sharma, my oncologist, requesting I call her office. 3rd message this week. I'd been avoiding it, terrified of hearing what I already suspected in my bones. Tomorrow I'd face Flynn, sign the papers, end this chapter. Then maybe I could finally deal with whatever was killing me from the inside out. The Fairmont Olympics lobby dripped with old money elegance. Crystal chandeliers, marble floors, the kind of luxury Flynn had surrounded me with during our marriage. His penthouse in Chicago had been a cage lined with silk, where I'd painted in a studio with north-facing windows, and slowly realized I'd traded my soul for comfort. Briggs met me at the elevator, his expression grim. He's in the presidential suite. Faith, before we go up, he looks terrible. I don't know what you'll see, but prepare yourself. I don't care how he looks. But that was a lie. I'd always cared too much, even now. Even knowing what he was. The suite's door opened before we could knock. Flynn stood in the doorway, and Briggs was right. He looked like hell. Gone was the polished crime lord who'd worn $1,000 suits like armor. This Flynn wore jeans and a wrinkled white shirt, sleeves rolled up to reveal the tattoos he'd always kept hidden, intricate designs that probably meant terrible things in his world. His dark hair, usually perfectly styled, fell across his forehead. His jaw was shadowed with days of stubble, but it was his eyes that made my breath catch. Those storm-gray eyes that used to look at me like I was the only thing that mattered, now haunted by something that looked like genuine pain. Faith. My name was barely a whisper. Let's make this quick. I pushed past him into the suite, Briggs following. You wanted to see me. Here I am. Sign the papers. The suite was massive, all floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Puget Sound. The Space Needle pierced the gray sky in the distance. Flynn had probably spent more on this room for one night than I'd made in 3 months. You lost weight. He closed the door, keeping his distance like I was something fragile that might shatter. Are you eating? That's not your concern anymore. The papers, Flynn. I'll sign them. I said I would. He moved to the bar, poured himself 2 fingers of whiskey with shaking hands. The Flynn I'd known had hands steady as stone. But first, I need to know something. 1 question, and I'll give you everything you want. You don't have anything I want. The truth. He downed the whiskey, grimacing. That night you left. What you overheard. How much did you understand? My hands clenched in my lap. Enough. I understood enough. Did you call the police? FBI? Anyone? No. The word came out harsh. Because I'm not stupid, Flynn. I know what happens to people who talk about what they've seen in your world. My sister died because she was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I won't follow her into the grave because I married the wrong man. Something flashed across his face. Anger, maybe, or hurt. I would never hurt you. No matter what you think of me now, you have to know that. I don't know anything about you. I never did. I stood, needing to move, to put space between us. You built our entire marriage on lies. Who are you, really? I'm the man who loves you. His voice cracked on the words. That was never a lie. Everything else, the business, the empire, all of it. I kept it from you to protect you, to give you the life you deserved. Built on blood money. I laughed, the sound bitter. Do you know what I thought when we met? I thought you were a miracle. This rough-edged man who looked at my paintings like they meant something, who listened when I talked about color theory and composition, who made me feel seen for the first time since Hope died. I thought I was so lucky. You were seeing the real me. That part was real. No, the real you orders men killed. The real you runs an empire built on suffering. The real you. My voice broke. I pressed my hands to my face, feeling the sting of tears I'd sworn I wouldn't cry. The real you is someone I never want to see again. So sign the goddamn papers, Flynn, and let me go. Silence stretched between us, heavy as stone. Then, is there something I need to know? The question was so quiet I almost missed it. I looked up to find Flynn staring at me with an intensity that made my skin prickle. His eyes traced over my face, my too thin frame. The tremor in my hands I couldn't quite hide. What do you mean? You're sick. Not a question. A statement of fact, delivered with the same certainty he'd probably used to condemn men to death. I can see it, Faith. You're dying. The words hung in the air between us like an executioner's blade. My knees went weak. I sank back onto the sofa, all my carefully maintained composure crumbling. How? I know you. Better than you think. He crossed to me, knelt in front of the sofa so we were eye level. This close, I could see the dark circles under his eyes, the new lines bracketing his mouth. Tell me what's wrong, please. It doesn't matter. It's not your problem. The hell it isn't. His hand reached for mine, stopped inches away, trembling in the space between us. Faith, talk to me. And maybe it was the exhaustion, or the fear I'd been carrying alone for months, or the fact that this man, this terrible, wonderful man, was looking at me like I still mattered. Maybe that's why the truth spilled out. I've been sick since I left Chicago. At first I thought it was stress, grief, but it got worse. The fatigue, weight loss, nausea. I finally saw a doctor last month. Dr. Sharma. She ran tests. My voice dropped to barely a whisper. She wants to see me today, to discuss the results. But I already know, Flynn. I can feel it in my bones. Something's very wrong. What kind of cancer? His voice was steady, controlled, the crime lord surfacing. I don't know yet. Maybe not cancer at all. Could be a dozen things. I laughed without humor. Ironic, isn't it? I escaped the mob only to be taken down by my own body. Flynn stood abruptly, pulling out his phone. I'm calling my doctor, Marcus Chen, best diagnostician on the West Coast. No. I stood too, stepping back. I don't want your help. I don't want anything from you. Don't be stupid. Pride doesn't cure disease. And neither does blood money. The words exploded out of me. I won't be saved by your empire, Flynn. I won't let you use your criminal connections to what? Keep you alive? His composure finally cracked, voice rising to match mine. You'd rather die than accept help from me? Is that what Hope would have wanted? The mention of my sister's name was a physical blow. Don't you dare. Don't you dare use her against me. Someone has to make you see reason. He ran his hands through his hair, destroying what little order remained. You want to hate me? Fine. Hate me while you're healthy. Hate me for the next 60 years. But don't throw your life away because you're too stubborn to. I'm dying, Flynn. The words ripped out of my throat, raw and true. I have maybe 6 months, maybe less. Dr. Sharma's tone on the phone, the urgency of her messages, I know what that means. So it doesn't matter what you offer, what resources you have. It's too late. The color drained from his face. He staggered backward like I'd shot him, colliding with the bar. The glass he'd set down earlier fell, shattering on the hardwood floor. Neither of us moved. 6 months, he repeated, the words barely audible. If I'm lucky. I wrapped my arms around myself. suddenly freezing. "So sign the papers, Flynn. Let me spend what time I have left in peace. Let me die as Faith Morrison, not Faith Carver. Give me that much." He stood amid the broken glass. This man who'd built an empire on ruthlessness, who commanded armies of criminals, who'd probably killed more people than I could imagine. And I watched something break inside him. Something fundamental and irreparable. My father died when I was 16. His voice was distant, hollow. Liver cancer. Drank himself to death over a decade. By the end, he was this skeletal thing that barely remembered my name. He kept saying he needed more time. Time to make things right with my mother. With me. With all the people he'd hurt. But time ran out. And he died full of regrets, leaving nothing but debts and damage. Flynn. I swore I'd never be him. Never leave things unsaid. Never let the people I love slip away without fighting for them. And then you overheard that conversation, saw the truth, and I let you go. I told myself it was for the best, that you'd be safer away from me, that I'd sign the papers, disappear from your life, let you be free. He finally looked at me, and his eyes were bright with unshed tears. But I can't do it, Faith. I can't let you die alone, hating me, believing our entire marriage was a lie. I can't. You don't have a choice. I always have a choice, and I choose you. He pulled his phone out again, fingers flying over the screen. Dr. Marcus Chen, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, Dr. James Patterson, the best oncologists, diagnosticians, researchers in the country. I'll bring them all to Seattle. We'll find out what's wrong, and we'll fix it. Flynn, please. I have resources you can't imagine. Experimental treatments, clinical trials, specialists who owe me favors. If there's a cure anywhere in the world, I'll find it. And if there isn't? He crossed to me then, broken glass crunching under his shoes, and took my hands in his. His touch was warm, solid, devastatingly familiar. Then I'll be with you. Every day you have left, however many or few. I'll make sure you're not alone, not scared, not in pain. I'll give you anything you want. Your own gallery, a house by the ocean, trips to every museum in the world. Whatever brings you joy. Tears spilled down my cheeks. Why? Why would you do this? Because I love you. Because you're the only good thing I've ever had. Because letting you go the first time nearly destroyed me, and I won't survive watching you die from a distance. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, the gesture achingly tender. Let me help you, Faith. Please. Let me try to save you, even if you never forgive me. I should have said no. Should have walked away, signed the papers, died with my pride intact and my conscience clear. But I was so tired. So scared. And the thought of facing the darkness alone made something inside me crumble. Okay, I whispered. Okay. Flynn's arms came around me, pulling me against his chest. I felt his heart hammering beneath his shirt, heard his shaky exhale of relief. And despite everything, the lies, the betrayal, the empire built on suffering, I let myself lean into his warmth. Just for a moment. Just until I found the strength to stand alone again. Behind us, Briggs cleared his throat softly. I'll give you two some privacy. Mrs. Carver, Morrison, call me when you're ready to discuss next steps. The door clicked shut. Flynn's hand came up to cradle the back of my head, fingers tangling in my hair. We'll get through this, he murmured against my temple. I promise you, Faith. We'll find a way. I didn't answer, because I'd learned the hard way that Flynn Carver's promises were beautiful, dangerous things, and this time I feared the price of believing him might be more than just my heart. It might be my life. Dr. Sharma's office was in a medical complex downtown. all sterile white walls and the antiseptic smell of hospitals that made my stomach turn. Flynn had wanted to come inside with me, but I'd drawn that line firmly. Some things I needed to face alone. Now, sitting across from Dr. Sharma's desk while she reviewed my test results with a grave expression, I wished I'd let him come. "The blood work is concerning," she said, pulling up images on her computer screen. "Elevated liver enzymes, abnormal white blood cell count, signs of systemic toxicity. Initially, I suspected lymphoma or leukemia, but the biopsy came back negative for cancer." Relief and confusion warred in my chest. "Then what is it?" "That's what puzzles me. Your symptoms, the fatigue, weight loss, nausea, cognitive difficulties, they're consistent with several conditions, but there's something about the pattern that doesn't fit any standard diagnosis." She turned the screen toward me, showing graphs I couldn't interpret. "With your permission, I'd like to bring in a specialist, someone who deals with rare diseases and complex cases." "How rare are we talking?" "I don't want to speculate until we have more information. But Faith, I'll be honest. Whatever this is, it's progressive and it's serious. Without proper treatment, you're looking at significant deterioration in the next 6 months. 6 months. The same timeline I'd thrown at Flynn yesterday. Pulled from thin air and terror. Hearing it confirmed made it real. What about quality of life in those 6 months? Dr. Sharma's expression softened. "That depends on the disease progression. Best case, you maintain most of your current function with managing symptoms. Worst case." She paused. "We'll cross that bridge if we come to it. Right now, let's focus on getting answers. Can I schedule you with Dr. Patterson? He's at Swedish Medical Center, one of the best diagnosticians in the Pacific Northwest." My phone buzzed. A text from Flynn. "Chen and Rodriguez arriving tonight. Patterson tomorrow. Whatever you need." Of course he'd already arranged it. The man who'd built an empire on information and control wouldn't wait for my permission. "Dr. Patterson," I said to Dr. Sharma. "Yes. Whatever it takes to figure this out." Flynn was waiting in the lobby when I emerged, impossible to miss in his dark wool coat and expensive shoes. He stood when he saw me, and I watched several people nearby do double takes. His presence commanded attention even when he was trying to blend in. "Well?" He fell into step beside me as we headed for the exit. "Not cancer. She doesn't know what it is. She wants to bring in a specialist." "Patterson, I know." At my sharp look, he continued. "I called Dr. Sharma's office this morning, asked to be copied on all medical information. She refused, cited patient confidentiality. So I called in a favor with the hospital administrator." "You had someone violate HIPAA for you?" "I have someone who understands that some rules matter less than keeping you alive." He held the door open, and we stepped into the gray Seattle afternoon. Rain was starting again, a constant drizzle that matched my mood. My car's in the garage across the street. I booked us a suite at the Four Seasons. "Us? You can't go back to your apartment. It's not safe." I stopped walking. "Safe from what?" Flynn glanced around the busy street, then guided me toward a coffee shop halfway down the block. Inside, he chose a corner table far from other patrons, positioned so he could watch both entrances. Mob habits, I thought. Always aware of exits and threats. "When you left Chicago," he said quietly, "once we were settled with coffees, neither of us would drink. I told everyone you were visiting family in Oregon, taking time to deal with your sister's anniversary. No one questioned it at first, but after a few weeks, people started asking questions. Where exactly were you? When were you coming back? Why wasn't I with you? What did you tell them? That we'd had a fight, that you needed space, that I was giving you time." His jaw tightened. "Salvatore. He's my second in command, runs operations when I'm not available. He kept pushing. Said it looked weak, Me letting my wife disappear. Said it made the organization look unstable. Good. Maybe your precious empire should fall apart. You don't understand. When empires fall, people die. Not just the men at the top, but everyone connected to them. Families, children, innocents caught in the crossfire. His eyes met mine. Like your sister was. The parallel was deliberate, calculated, and it hit home. What are you saying? I'm saying Salvatore wasn't satisfied with my explanations. 3 days after you left, I found him looking through your studio. He said he was concerned, wanted to make sure you hadn't left behind any evidence. But I know Salvatore. He wasn't looking for evidence. He was trying to figure out what you knew. My hands tightened around my coffee cup. Did he find anything? No, because you're smart, and you never asked questions you didn't want answered. Flynn leaned forward. But then you filed for divorce, through a lawyer in Seattle. And suddenly Salvatore had a location. You think he'd come after me? Why? I haven't told anyone anything. I just want out. Because you're a loose end. And in my world, loose ends get cut. He pulled out his phone, showed me a photo of a man with cold eyes and a scar bisecting his left eyebrow. This is Salvatore Romano. He's been with the Carver family since before I took over. He's loyal, efficient, and absolutely ruthless. He's also convinced that the only way to keep you quiet permanently is to make sure you can't talk. I stared at the photo, feeling ice creep down my spine. You brought me into this world. I know, and I'll get you out of it safely, I swear. But right now, you need protection. Real protection. Not just a hotel room and prayer. He put the phone away. I have men watching your apartment, your gallery, this medical building, anywhere you might go. But I need you somewhere. I know you're secure. The Four Seasons, top floor, private elevator, security team I've personally vetted. It's the best I can do without taking you back to Chicago, which I'm guessing you won't agree to. He was right about that. How long? Until I deal with Salvatore, until I know the threat is neutralized. He paused. Until we figure out what's making you sick and fix it. You can't fix everything, Flynn. Watch me. The suite was ridiculous. 2 bedrooms, a living area bigger than my entire apartment, floor-to-ceiling windows with views of Elliott Bay. Flynn's security team had already swept it. 2 men I recognized from photographs I'd seen in his Chicago study. They nodded respectfully as we entered, then disappeared into the hallway to stand guard. Make yourself comfortable, Flynn said, shrugging out of his coat. I ordered dinner from that Italian place you like, margaritas. Should be here in an hour. You remember? I remember everything about you. He moved to the bar, poured himself whiskey, then seemed to think better of it and set it down untouched. Your favorite food, your favorite color, how you organize your paintbrushes by size and hue, the way you hum when you're working, how you always kick off your shoes the moment you get home, how you can't sleep without reading for at least 20 minutes. I remember all of it, Faith. I crossed to the windows, needing space from the intensity in his voice. The city spread below us, lights beginning to flicker on as evening approached. What's the plan? I live in this gilded cage while you hunt down your second-in-command? While I gather evidence that he's plotting against me. There are rules, even in my world. I can't just eliminate a high-ranking member of the organization without cause. But if I can prove he's betrayed the family, gone behind my back. Flynn joined me at the window, maintaining careful distance. Then I'm within my rights to handle it. Handle it. I laughed bitterly. Such a clean word for murder. Would you prefer I let him kill you? The question hung between us, unanswerable. I need to shower, I said finally. Change clothes. Except I don't have any clothes because I didn't pack for an indefinite stay in a luxury hotel. Already taken care of. Second bedroom closet. I had my assistant in Chicago pack your things, had them shipped overnight. At my expression, he added, Your clothes, Faith, not jewelry or anything of value. Just things I thought you'd want. Your sketchbooks, favorite sweaters, books from your nightstand. It should have felt invasive. Instead, it felt like the man I'd fallen in love with was still in there somewhere, buried under layers of violence and power. Thank you, I whispered. Don't thank me for basic decency. He moved toward the door. I'll be in the study making calls. Doctors Chen and Rodriguez will be here by 9. They'll want to examine you, review Dr. Sharma's findings. Is that okay? I nodded, too tired to argue. Faith? He paused in the doorway. I know this isn't what you wanted. Being stuck here with me, accepting my help. But I meant what I said. I'm going to fix this. All of it. I'm going to find out what's wrong and cure it. I'm going to deal with Salvatore, and I'm going to give you back your life, even if I'm not part of it anymore. Why? What do you get out of this? His smile was sad, resigned. The knowledge that you're alive and happy somewhere in the world. That's enough. He left before I could respond. I stood at the window for a long time, watching the rain streak the glass, feeling the ache in my bones that had become constant background noise. 6 months, maybe less. And I'd spend them tangled up with the man who'd broken my heart and broken my trust. The universe had a twisted sense of humor. Dr. Chen arrived at 8:30, a silver-haired man with kind eyes and hands that moved with practiced precision. Dr. Rodriguez came an hour later, younger, intense, carrying 3 laptops and a portable medical kit that would have looked more at home in an emergency room. They examined me in one of the bedrooms that Flynn had converted into a makeshift medical suite. Blood pressure, heart rate, neurological tests, more vials of blood than I thought my body contained. They asked questions about my symptoms, my medical history, when exactly the problems had started. Shortly after I left Chicago, I told them. Maybe a week after. I thought it was stress at first. Any environmental changes? Dr. Rodriguez asked, typing notes rapidly. New apartment. New foods, different water supply. Everything was new. New city, new apartment, new life. Any possibility of toxic exposure? Mold, chemicals, heavy metals? Not that I know of. They exchanged glances. Dr. Chen spoke carefully. Ms. Morrison, we're going to run a comprehensive toxicology panel. Test for substances that wouldn't show up in standard blood work. Environmental toxins, yes, but also... He paused. Also intentional poisoning. The room tilted. What? It's a precaution, Dr. Rodriguez said quickly. Given your symptom progression and the lack of clear diagnosis, we want to rule everything out. But I saw the look they'd shared, heard what they weren't saying. Someone had told them to check for poison. Flynn had told them. You think someone's poisoning me? My voice sounded distant, strange. We think it's worth investigating, Dr. Chen said diplomatically. The results will take a few days. In the meantime, we'll start you on supportive care, IV fluids, vitamins, medications to manage your symptoms, make you more comfortable while we search for answers. After they left, I found Flynn in the study, standing at the window with his phone pressed to his ear. He was speaking in Italian, his voice hard and cold, giving orders that probably meant someone's death. He ended the call when he saw me, sliding the phone into his pocket. You told them to test for poison. I told them to test for everything. Don't lie to me. Not about this. I stepped into the room, exhaustion making me sway. You think someone's poisoning me? Who? Salvatore? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe someone else in the organization who sees you as a threat. His hands clenched at his sides. But the timeline fits, Faith. You were fine in Chicago. Even after you heard that conversation, you were scared, angry, but physically fine. Then you came to Seattle, and within days you're sick. Getting sicker. It's too convenient. How would they even... The answer hit me before I finished the question. My apartment, when I first moved in. Tell me about it. Every detail. I sank into a chair, my legs refusing to hold me anymore. I rented it furnished through an agency. It was perfect. Already set up, utilities included. I moved in the day I arrived. The landlord had left groceries as a welcome gift. Coffee, tea, bread, cheese. Things to get me started. Flynn's expression went granite hard. What agency? Morrison Properties. I thought it was funny, sharing a last name. My voice cracked. Oh God. It was you, wasn't it? You knew where I was all along. No. I had no idea until you filed for divorce. But Salvatore. He pulled out his phone, dialed. Michael, I need information on Morrison Properties in Seattle. Who owns it? Full corporate structure. All transactions in the last 6 months. I want it in an hour. He ended the call, focused back on me. If Salvatore found you before I did, if he set up that apartment, then everything I've been eating, drinking, breathing for 3 months could be poisoned. The words came out remarkably calm considering I felt like screaming. He's been killing me slowly. We don't know that yet. The toxicology will tell us. But if I'm right... His jaw worked. If I'm right, this is my fault. I brought you into this world. I failed to protect you. And when you ran, I let you go instead of making sure you were safe. You can't control everything. I'm supposed to control my own organization. The words exploded out of him. I'm supposed to know when my second-in-command goes rogue, when someone close to me plots murder. What kind of boss am I if I can't even keep my wife safe? Ex-wife, soon. Never. He crossed to me, dropped to his knees beside the chair. No matter what papers we sign, no matter how much you hate me, you'll always be mine, Faith. Always. His hand covered mine where it rested on the chair arm. His touch was warm, familiar, devastating. I should have pulled away. Instead, I found myself threading my fingers through his. If it is poison, I whispered. If Salvatore really is trying to kill me, what happens then? Flynn's eyes met mine, and I saw the crime lord's surface, cold, calculating, absolutely ruthless. Then I declare war on my own organization. I burn it all down to protect you. And I make sure Salvatore dies very, very slowly. Flynn. I've built an empire on blood and fear. I've done things that would make you sick if you knew the details. I've destroyed lives, ended them, all in the name of power and territory. His grip on my hand tightened. But you, Faith, you're the one good thing, the one pure thing I've ever had. And I will slaughter armies to keep you alive. I'll tear down everything I've built. I'll go to war with every crime family in the country if that's what it takes. Do you understand? You're worth more than all of it. You're worth everything. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I don't want you to be this person. I know, but it's who I am, who I've always been. He lifted my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles. And right now, the monster you married is the only thing standing between you and death. So let me be monstrous, just for a little while. Let me save you, even if you never forgive me for how I do it. I wanted to say no, wanted to tell him I'd rather die clean than live tainted by his violence. But I was so tired and so scared, and the thought of fading away alone in Seattle made something in me break. Okay, I breathed. Okay, save me. His head dropped to my lap, his shoulders shaking with something that might have been relief or grief. My free hand moved of its own accord, stroking through his hair like I used to when we were happy. when I thought I knew him. "I'll fix this," he murmured against my knee. "I swear it, Faith. I'll fix everything." I didn't have the heart to tell him some things stayed broken, no matter how hard you tried to repair them. That some betrayals cut too deep to heal. That even if he saved my body, my heart might be too shattered to survive. Outside, the rain continued its endless fall, and somewhere in the darkness, someone who wanted me dead was waiting. The only question was whether Flynn could find them before whatever poison was in my system finished its work. 6 months or less, Dr. Sharma had said. I prayed it would be enough time for the truth. The toxicology results arrived 3 days later. Dr. Rodriguez came herself to deliver them, her expression grim as she spread printouts across the coffee table in the suite's living room. Flynn sat beside me on the sofa, close enough that our shoulders touched, his presence both comforting and overwhelming. "Thallium," Dr. Rodriguez said without preamble. "Small doses administered consistently over approximately 3 months. It's a heavy metal, tasteless, odorless, dissolves easily in liquids. Historically used in rat poison until it was banned in most countries due to its toxicity in humans." My hand flew to my mouth. Someone really has been poisoning me. "The dose was carefully calculated," she continued, pulling up charts on her tablet. "Enough to cause progressive symptoms, the fatigue, nausea, weight loss, hair loss you mentioned, but not enough to kill quickly. Whoever did this wanted it to look like a wasting disease. Natural causes." Flynn's jaw could have been carved from stone. Treatment options. Prussian blue is the standard chelation therapy. It binds to the thallium and helps the body excrete it. Combined with aggressive hydration, electrolyte management, and supportive care, we can remove most of the metal from her system. "But Faith, I won't lie. You're going to feel worse before you feel better. The chelation process itself can be difficult." "How long?" 4 to 6 weeks of intensive treatment. Then another few months of monitoring to ensure no permanent organ damage. Dr. Rodriguez's voice softened. "You're lucky. We caught it before it reached lethal levels. Another month or two and—" She didn't finish. She didn't need to. After she left with instructions for the chelation protocol, I sat in silence, processing. Someone had tried to kill me. Slowly, methodically, had been feeding me poison for months. The coffee I'd drunk every morning, the tea before bed, the water I'd used to cook. "Morrison Properties," Flynn said quietly, breaking the silence. "Owned by a shell corporation that traces back to Salvatore's brother-in-law. The groceries left in your apartment, they were the source. Coffee beans laced with thallium powder. Sealed so perfectly you'd never notice. He wanted it to look natural, so when I died, there'd be no investigation tying back to your organization. Smart, cautious, classic Salvatore." Flynn stood, moving to the windows. "He's been planning this since before you left Chicago. He knew you'd overheard something. He just didn't know how much, so he decided to eliminate the problem permanently." "Yes." The single word hung in the air. Confirmation and condemnation rolled together. I thought about the morning coffee I'd loved, how it had become bitter and difficult to drink after a few weeks. I'd thought it was stress affecting my taste buds. Instead, it was poison accumulating in my system, slowly shutting down my organs. "What happens now?" I asked. Flynn turned from the window. In the afternoon light, he looked older than his 34 years, lined with exhaustion and something that might have been guilt. "Now I call a meeting. Council of the 5 families. Present evidence of Salvatore's betrayal. According to our laws, attempted murder of a made man's wife is grounds for execution." "Your laws," I laughed bitterly. "The rules of organized crime. They're the only rules that matter in my world, and right now, they're going to save your life." He pulled out his phone. "The meeting will be in Chicago. I'll need to go back." Panic flared in my chest. You're leaving me here? I'm taking you with me. At my expression, he continued, Faith, you need medical care. Round-the-clock monitoring during chelation. The best place for that is my home, where I have a full medical suite and can control who has access to you. Here, we're vulnerable. Salvatore knows where you are. If he realizes we've figured it out, he'll try to finish what he started. Exactly. In Chicago, in my territory, I can protect you properly. And you'll have the best doctors, the best equipment, everything you need to recover. The thought of returning to Chicago, to the penthouse where I'd been happy and then devastated, made my stomach turn. But he was right. Here, I was an easy target. There, I'd be in the heart of Flynn's empire, surrounded by his people, his security, his resources. When do we leave? Tonight, I have a plane waiting at Boeing Field. We'll be home by midnight. He crossed to me, knelt in front of the sofa so we were eye level. I know this isn't what you want, going back to that life, even temporarily, but please trust me, just this once. Let me keep you safe while your body heals. I studied his face, searching for the man I'd fallen in love with beneath the crime lord's mask. Found him in the worry creasing his forehead, the tenderness in his eyes when he looked at me, the slight tremble in his hands where they rested on his knees. What about the divorce? Put it on hold, or proceed with it if that's what you want. But either way, you'll stay with me until you're recovered and Salvatore is dealt with. After that, his voice roughened. After that, you're free to go. I won't try to stop you again. You'll have whatever settlement you want, protection for the rest of your life, and my promise to never contact you again if that's your choice. It should have been everything I wanted. Freedom, safety, a clean break from this world. So why did the thought of never seeing Flynn again feel like dying all over again? Okay, I whispered. Take me home. The flight was smooth, the private jet luxurious enough that I barely noticed we'd left the ground. Flynn had a medical team waiting. A nurse named Patricia, who'd worked with the family for 20 years, and a young doctor named James who'd be overseeing my chelation therapy. They set up an IV before we even took off, starting the supportive care Dr. Rodriguez had ordered. I dozed through most of the flight, exhausted from 3 months of slow poisoning and 3 days of intensive medical intervention. When I woke, Flynn was beside me, reading what looked like financial reports, but was probably something far more sinister. He set them aside when he saw I was awake. How are you feeling? Like I've been poisoned. I tried for humor, failed. Where are we? 30 minutes from Chicago. I sent word ahead. The house is being secured, medical suite prepared. Michael's coordinating with the other families for the council meeting. He paused. My mother called. She heard you were coming back. She wants to see you. Camilla Carver. Flynn's mother, an elegant woman in her 60s who'd treated me like a daughter during our marriage, who'd taught me to make pasta from scratch and told me stories about Flynn's childhood, who had no idea her son ran a crime empire, or if she did, had made peace with it long ago. What did you tell her about why I left? That we'd had problems, that you needed space, that we're working through it. His hand found mine, squeezed gently. She doesn't need to know the rest, any of it. Because Camilla Carver lived in a beautiful bubble where her son was a successful businessman, not a mob boss. Where I'd left because of marital issues, not because I'd discovered my husband ordered murders. The same bubble I'd lived in for 3 years. I don't know how to talk to her, how to pretend everything's normal. You don't have to pretend anything. Just be yourself. The faith she knows and loves. Can you do that? For me. For him. Always for him. Even now. I nodded. The penthouse was exactly as I'd left it. Art Deco elegance, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Lake Michigan, My studio, with its northern light still filled with half-finished canvases I'd abandoned the night I fled. Patricia and Dr. James whisked me immediately to the medical suite Flynn had set up in what used to be a guest room. They started the Prussian blue treatment immediately. Dr. James explained it would bind to the thallium in my system, turn my excretions blue. Don't be alarmed, it's normal, and gradually remove the poison. I'd need it 3 times a day for weeks, combined with fluids, electrolyte supplements, and monitoring for any adverse reactions. You'll feel worse before you feel better, he warned, echoing Dr. Rodriguez. The chelation process can cause its own symptoms: nausea, cramping, headaches, but it's necessary to get the thallium out. Will there be permanent damage? His hesitation told me everything. We won't know until we see how your body responds. The kidneys took the most impact. There may be some residual impairment, but with proper care and monitoring, you should recover most function. Should, not will. The uncertainty was almost worse than a definite answer. Flynn appeared in the doorway as Dr. James was finishing. How is she? Stable. Treatment started. We'll monitor closely over the next 48 hours. Dr. James gathered his things. I'll be back in 6 hours for the next dose. Call if anything changes. After he left, Flynn entered the room fully, closing the door behind him. He'd changed clothes, now wore dark slacks and a black dress shirt that made him look every inch the dangerous man he was. But his expression when he looked at me was pure tenderness. Your room is ready. Same one you had before if you want it. Or, he hesitated, or the master. With me. I'll sleep on the couch. I just thought you might not want to be alone. The master bedroom. Our bedroom, before I learned the truth. The thought of sleeping in that bed again, surrounded by memories of better times, made my chest ache. I'll take my old room. Something flickered in his eyes. Disappointment, maybe, but he nodded. Whatever you need. Patricia will stay tonight, monitor your vitals. I'll be down the hall if you need anything. Flynn. I caught his hand as he turned to leave. Thank you. For all of this. I know I haven't said it, but thank you. He raised my hand to his lips, pressed a kiss to my knuckles, the same gesture he'd made in Seattle. You don't owe me gratitude for basic decency, for protecting the woman I love. His voice dropped to a whisper. Rest, Faith. Let your body heal. Everything else we'll deal with later. The council meeting was scheduled for 3 days after we arrived. 3 days in which I felt progressively worse, the chelation working but making me miserable in the process. I vomited constantly, couldn't keep food down, developed a headache that felt like my skull was splitting. Patricia assured me it was normal, that my body was purging the poison, but normal didn't make it easier. Flynn was in and out, managing his empire while checking on me every few hours. I heard him sometimes late at night, standing outside my door, debating whether to knock. He never did. I wasn't sure if I was relieved or disappointed. On the morning of the council meeting, I felt slightly better. Weak, shaky, but able to stand without the room spinning. Patricia helped me shower, dress in comfortable clothes that hung loose on my too thin frame. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. Hollow-eyed, gaunt, my hair thinner than it had been. This was what Salvatore had wanted. This slow deterioration, this living death. Rage flickered through the exhaustion. He'd tried to kill me. Quietly, carefully. Had poisoned me day after day, watching from a distance as I wasted away. And he'd almost succeeded. Flynn found me in the studio, standing in front of the painting I'd been working on the night I left. An abstract piece in blues and grays, all turbulent emotion translated to canvas. I hadn't touched it in months, but the brushes were still laid out exactly as I'd left them, as if Flynn had preserved the space like a shrine. "How are you feeling?" He stayed in the doorway, keeping distance between us. "Like I want Salvatore dead?" He stepped into the room then, surprise and something that might have been approval crossing his features. "Faith, I'm not naive anymore. I know what you're going to do. I know what tonight's meeting means." I turned to face him. "And I want him dead, Flynn. I want him to pay for what he did to me. For trying to take away the life I was building, the freedom I'd finally found. For making me sick, scared, desperate. I want him to suffer the way I've suffered. You're asking me to kill for you. I'm telling you I won't mourn him when you do." I crossed to Flynn, held his gaze. "I'm not the woman you married anymore. That Faith died in Seattle, slowly poisoned by your world. This Faith, she understands that sometimes violence is justice, that sometimes monsters need to be destroyed." Something ignited in Flynn's eyes, dark, possessive, terrifying. "Do you know what you're saying? What you're giving me permission to do?" "Yes. I'm saying do what you need to do. Protect me, protect yourself, protect your empire. And when Salvatore is dead, when this is over, we'll figure out what comes next. But tonight I want you to be the monster everyone thinks you are." Flynn closed the distance between us in 2 strides, his hand coming up to cup my face with devastating gentleness, despite the violence promised in his eyes. "I've done terrible things in my life, Faith. Things I can never take back, never make right. But this? Destroying the man who tried to kill you? This will be the one thing I do without a single regret." "Good." I leaned into his touch, too tired to resist anymore. "Make him pay." "I will." His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. "And then I'm getting out. All of it. The organization, the empire, the business. I'll hand it over to someone trustworthy, take whatever deal the feds want to offer, pay whatever price I need to pay. But I'm done, Faith. I'm done with this life." I stared at him, shocked. "You'd give it all up? For you? I'd burn it all down and dance in the ashes." He pressed his forehead to mine. "I built an empire thinking it would give me power, respect, security. But it almost cost me the only thing that actually matters. So yes, I'm walking away. After tonight, after I've dealt with Salvatore, I'm out. And I'm taking you somewhere safe, somewhere quiet, where you can heal and paint and live the life you should have had all along. Flynn, I know you might not want that life with me. I know I've destroyed your trust, your faith in us. But even if you choose to leave, even if you never want to see me again after this is over, I'm still getting out. Because you were right, Faith. This world is poison, and I won't let it kill either of us anymore." Tears slipped down my cheeks. Flynn caught them with his thumbs, his touch achingly tender. "Rest," he murmured. "Tonight's going to be long. Tomorrow, when Salvatore is gone and the threat is neutralized, we'll start planning our exit. But for now, just rest. Let me handle the darkness." He left me in the studio, surrounded by half-finished paintings and abandoned dreams. I sank onto the paint-stained sofa, exhausted and terrified, and something else I couldn't quite name. Hope, maybe. For the first time since I'd fled Chicago, I felt something that might have been hope. The council meeting took place in a warehouse on the south side, neutral territory where the 5 families could gather without anyone claiming home advantage. Flynn had explained the structure to me years ago, back when I thought he was describing a legitimate business consortium. The Carvers controlled the north side and most of the city's political connections. The Rossettis had the docks and shipping. The Delgados ran the western suburbs and cross-border trafficking. The Kims handled the eastern territories and tech sector integration. And the Petrovs controlled gambling and entertainment across the metro area. Together, They maintained a delicate balance of power that had kept Chicago relatively peaceful for nearly a decade. Murder within the families was forbidden without council approval. It maintained order, prevented all-out war. Flynn kissed my forehead before he left, his expression grim. "Michael will stay with you. Patricia and Dr. James are on standby if you need anything. I'll be back by midnight. Be careful." A shadow of a smile crossed his face. "Always am." But we both knew that was a lie. There was nothing careful about what Flynn was about to do. I watched from the penthouse windows as his motorcade pulled away. 3 black SUVs, bulletproof and intimidating. Michael stood near the door, silent and alert, one hand resting casually near the gun I knew he carried. He'd been Flynn's head of security for 7 years, had probably killed more people than I could imagine. The thought should have horrified me. Instead, I found it comforting. These men, these killers, were keeping me safe. What did that say about who I'd become? Midnight came and went, 1 a.m. too. I couldn't sleep, couldn't paint, couldn't do anything but pace and worry and imagine all the ways tonight could go wrong. What if the other families didn't believe Flynn's evidence? What if Salvatore had allies on the council? What if this turned into the war Flynn had promised? Chicago burning while I hid in a penthouse. At 2:30, my phone buzzed. A text from Flynn. "It's done. Coming home." Relief hit so hard my knees went weak. Michael must have gotten the same message because his posture relaxed fractionally, his hand moving away from his weapon. "Boss will be here in 20 minutes, Mrs. Carver." Mrs. Carver. I should have corrected him, reminded him I'd tried to divorce Flynn, had run from this life. But the words wouldn't come. Because tonight, for better or worse, I was part of this world again. Flynn arrived exactly 20 minutes later, looking exhausted but unharmed. His shirt was still crisp, his hands clean, no visible evidence of violence. But I saw it in his eyes, the weight of what he'd done settling into the lines of his face. "Is it finished?" I asked as he closed the door behind him. "Yes." The council voted unanimously. Salvatore was found guilty of betrayal, attempted murder, and conspiracy against a maid family. He was executed an hour ago. Flynn shrugged out of his jacket, loosened his tie. "It's over, Faith. He can't hurt you anymore." I should have felt vindicated, relieved. Something. Instead, I just felt hollow. How did he die? Does it matter? Yes. Flynn studied me for a long moment, then sighed. Quickly. More mercy than he deserved, but the council demanded efficiency. I wanted him to suffer, to feel every moment of fear you felt, but... He ran a hand through his hair. "I wanted you to know I tried. To make it hurt, to make it last. But the others overruled me. Good." The word surprised us both. "I don't want you to be that person, the one who tortures for revenge. I struggled to articulate it. I want justice, not cruelty. Does that make sense? More than you know." He crossed to me, pulled me gently into his arms. "It's over now. The threat is gone. You can heal without looking over your shoulder." I leaned into his warmth, feeling the steady beat of his heart against my cheek. "You said you were getting out, that you'd walk away from all of this." "I am. Tomorrow I meet with my attorney to start the process. I'll negotiate immunity with the feds in exchange for information on the other families. They've been trying to get someone inside for years. I'll give them everything they need to build cases against the Rossettis, Delgados, Petrovs. The Kims run clean enough they'll probably survive. But the others? They're going down." I pulled back to look at him. "You'd betray them? Your allies?" "They're not my allies. They're business partners in an organization built on suffering. And I'm done contributing to it." His hand came up to cup my face. "I meant what I said, Faith. I'm walking away. From the empire, the power, all of it. I'll take whatever deal the government offers, serve whatever time I need to serve if it comes to that. But I'm out. And then what? Then I disappear. New name, new life, somewhere far from Chicago. Somewhere quiet where I can forget what I've been, what I've done. Maybe. He hesitated. Maybe Maine. Small coastal town. Nobody knows us. Nobody cares about our past. I could work on boats, fix engines, live simply. That's a fantasy, Flynn. People like you don't just walk away. Watch me. His intensity was almost frightening. I've spent 15 years building an empire I never wanted, following in my father's footsteps because I didn't know there was another way. But you showed me faith. You showed me that there's more to life than power and fear. That there's art and beauty and quiet moments that matter more than any criminal empire ever could. I showed you that by running away. You showed me that by being yourself. By choosing light even when I offered you darkness. By painting beauty even when surrounded by ugliness. By refusing to accept the life I built for you because you knew it was wrong. His voice roughened. You're the bravest person I've ever met. And if you'll let me, I want to spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. Tears slipped down my cheeks. I don't know if I can forgive you. For the lies, the deception, for pulling me into this world. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm asking for a chance to make things right. To give you the life you should have had, away from all of this. And if, at the end of it, you still can't stand the sight of me, I'll disappear from your life completely. You'll never have to see me again. I wanted to say no. Wanted to protect myself from more heartbreak, more betrayal. But standing in his arms, feeling him tremble with hope and fear, I couldn't find the words. Okay, I whispered. Okay, we'll try. But Flynn, if you lie to me again, if you pull me back into this world, if you become that person one more time, I won't, I swear it. He pressed his forehead to mine. From this moment forward, I'm yours. Not the organizations, not the empires. Yours. Whatever you need, whatever you want, I'll give you. Even if what you want is for me to leave. I don't want you to leave. The admission hurt. I want you to be the man I fell in love with. The one who looked at art like it mattered, who listened when I talked, who made me feel seen. Can you be that man again? I never stopped being him. He's been here all along, buried under years of violence and power plays. But Faith, I'll warn you. That man still did terrible things. Still has blood on his hands that will never wash off. Can you live with that? I thought about the girl I'd been 3 years ago, falling in love with a stranger in a bookstore. Thought about the woman I'd become, hardened by betrayal and poisoning and 3 months of dying slowly. Thought about what I wanted from the life I had left. I can live with it, I said finally. If you can live with never going back, with being nobody instead of somebody, with giving up everything you built. Everything I built almost killed you. I'll dance on its grave. He kissed my forehead, my cheeks, the corner of my mouth. Tomorrow, we start the process. Attorneys, immunity deals, transition of power. It'll take months to disentangle myself completely. But we'll do it together, and then we'll disappear. Just us. Clean slate. Just us, I echoed. Just us. The next 3 months were a blur of medical treatments, legal negotiations, and slow healing. The Prussian blue chelation continued, gradually pulling the thallium from my system. Dr. James monitored my progress carefully, adjusting dosages as needed. The nausea faded after the first month. Energy started returning in the second. By the third month, I could paint again without exhaustion, forcing me to stop after an hour. Flynn met with federal prosecutors weekly, giving them everything they needed to dismantle the criminal organizations he'd spent 15 years building relationships with. The Rossettis went down first. Massive RICO indictment that resulted in 63 arrests. The Delgados followed, their cross-border operations exposed and shut down. The Petrovs fought harder, but even they couldn't withstand the amount of evidence Flynn provided. Only the Kims survived, and only because they'd stayed clean enough that Flynn had nothing substantial to give. But they pulled out of Chicago entirely, relocating their operations to Los Angeles. Within 3 months, Flynn's empire, and the empires of his allies, had crumbled completely. He negotiated full immunity in exchange for his testimony. No prison time, no charges, just mandatory cooperation, and a lifetime of looking over his shoulder for revenge from the criminals he'd betrayed. He took the deal without hesitation. We sold the penthouse, liquidated assets, arranged for his mother to be supported without her knowing the truth about where the money came from. Flynn set up trusts for the families of men who'd worked for him, making sure their children could go to college, their wives could survive, trying to make amends where he could. "It doesn't erase what I did," he told me one night, signing the last of the financial documents. "Nothing will. But at least I can try to leave them better off than my father left us." I squeezed his hand. "It's more than most would do." We left Chicago on a gray October morning, driving away in a modest Honda, nothing like the luxury cars Flynn was used to. His entire life fit in the back seat. Some clothes, a few personal items, documents for our new identities. Everything else had been sold or given away. Faith Morrison and Flynn Morrison. We'd reclaimed my maiden name for both of us, a fresh start built on the past I'd tried to escape. The government had arranged our paperwork, new social security numbers, new birth certificates, new lives. "Are you sure about this?" I asked as Chicago disappeared in the rearview mirror. "Leaving everything behind?" Flynn reached over, laced his fingers through mine. "I've never been more sure of anything." We drove north and east through Wisconsin and Michigan, across the Upper Peninsula toward the coast. Flynn had found a small town in Maine through a realtor who specialized in quiet retreats. Population 300, tourist season in summer, isolation in winter. Perfect for 2 people trying to disappear. The house was small, a weathered cottage overlooking the Atlantic. 2 bedrooms, a kitchen with windows facing the water, a converted garage that would make a perfect studio. The roof leaked, the plumbing was questionable, and the furnace sounded like it was held together with hope and duct tape. "It's perfect," I breathed, standing in the overgrown yard with salt wind whipping my hair. Flynn pulled me against his side. "It needs work. So do we." He laughed, the sound rusty but genuine. "True. We can fix it together, the house and us." We spent the fall and winter renovating. Flynn proved surprisingly handy, attacking household repairs with the same intensity he'd once brought to running a criminal empire. He fixed the roof, replaced the plumbing, rebuilt the furnace from scratch. I painted the walls, refinished floors, transformed the garage into a studio with north-facing windows that caught the perfect light. The town accepted us with typical New England reserve, friendly enough but respecting our privacy. Flynn got a job at the marina, working on boat engines and doing odd repairs. I opened a small online gallery, selling watercolors of the coast and abstract pieces inspired by our journey. We made enough to cover bills and groceries. It wasn't luxury, but it was honest. We learned to be normal, to argue about grocery shopping and whose turn it was to do dishes, to laugh at bad movies and take walks on the beach at sunset, to sleep in the same bed without the weight of empires and secrets pressing down on us. Some nights, Flynn woke screaming from nightmares, memories of violence, of men he'd killed, of the empire that had almost consumed him. I'd hold him until the shaking stopped, remind him that he was Flynn Morrison now, not Flynn Carver, that the past couldn't reach us here. Other nights, I'd wake terrified that the poisoning would return, that Salvatore had somehow survived. that this peace was temporary. Flynn would pull me close, press kisses to my hair, promise me over and over that we were safe, that no one would hurt me again, that he'd burn the world down before he let anyone take this life from us. "I love you," he'd whisper in the darkness. "I loved you the moment I saw you in that bookstore, and I'll love you the day I die." Everything I did, leaving the empire, testifying, walking away from power, I did it for you, because you're worth more than any of it. You're worth everything. And slowly, carefully, I learned to believe him. Spring arrived with crocuses pushing through the last snow, with ice breaking up on the shore, with longer days and warming temperatures. My checkups with a local doctor showed no remaining trace of thallium, no permanent organ damage beyond some minor kidney scarring that would require monitoring but not treatment. I was healthy, fully, completely healthy for the first time in a year. Flynn threw a small party, just us and a few people from town we'd befriended. Simple food, local wine, laughter that felt earned rather than forced. That night, after everyone left, he pulled me onto our tiny porch overlooking the water. "I have something for you." He produced a small box from his pocket, and my heart stuttered. "Wait. Before you panic, it's not what you think. Open it." Inside was a simple silver bracelet, engraved with coordinates. I looked up, questioning. "The bookstore where we met," Flynn explained softly. "Where everything started. I know we can't go back there, can't be those people anymore. But I wanted you to have something that reminded you that the good parts were real. That what we had before I destroyed it, that was genuine." Tears pricked my eyes. "Flynn, I'm not asking you to marry me again. I know that trust is still broken, still being rebuilt. But I wanted you to know that I remember where we started. And I'm grateful every day that you're giving me a chance to build something new with you. Something better." I threw my arms around his neck, the bracelet clutched in my hand. "I love you. I don't know when it happened again, or how, but I do. I love you, Flynn Morrison. The real you. The one who fixes boat engines and argues about paint colors and wakes up from nightmares. Not the empire. Not the power. You." His arms tightened around me. "You have no idea how long I've waited to hear you say that." "I think I have some idea." I pulled back to look at him. This man who'd destroyed his own empire to save me, who'd walked away from everything to build a quiet life. "We're going to be okay, aren't we?" "Better than okay." He kissed me softly, tasting of wine and hope and new beginnings. "We're going to be happy." And for the first time since I'd fled Chicago a year ago, I believed him completely. Summer in coastal Maine was a revelation. Tourists flooded the town for lobster rolls and lighthouse tours, keeping Flynn busy at the marina with boat repairs and charters. My online gallery gained traction. Apparently there was a market for watercolors depicting rocky coastlines and storm-tossed seas. I wasn't getting rich, but I was making enough that we could afford to splurge on dinner out occasionally. We were becoming people again. People with routines and friends and plans beyond just survival. "Faith Morrison?" A woman's voice called from across the farmer's market where I was buying vegetables. "I thought that was you." I turned to find a 30-something woman with kind eyes and paint-stained fingers, holding a basket of fresh tomatoes. She looked familiar, but I couldn't quite place her. "I'm sorry. Have we met?" "Julia Chen. We were in the same MFA program at Northwestern about 5 years ago." She shifted her basket, smiling. "You probably don't remember me. We weren't in the same cohort. But I always admired your work. Those abstract pieces you did about loss and memory were stunning." Northwestern. My life before Flynn, before everything changed. I'd been pursuing my master's in fine arts when we met. had dropped out after we married because Flynn wanted me to focus on my art without the pressure of academia. One of many small sacrifices I'd made that had seemed reasonable at the time. Julia, of course. I remember your mixed media installations. They were incredible. I gestured toward my modest basket. Are you living here now? Just visiting for the summer. I teach at Maine College of Art in Portland now, but I have a cottage here for the season, trying to work on my next show. She glanced around. Are you in the area too? I'd love to catch up properly, see what you've been working on. We exchanged numbers, made tentative plans for coffee. After she left, I stood in the middle of the market, vegetables forgotten, processing the encounter. Julia had known me before Flynn, before the mob, before poison and betrayal, and everything that had shaped the last year of my life. To her, I was just Faith Morrison, talented artist who disappeared from the Chicago art scene. What would she think if she knew the truth? Flynn found me in my studio that evening, staring at a half-finished canvas without really seeing it. He'd learned to read my moods, knew when something was troubling me. What's wrong? He settled on the stool beside my easel, still in his work clothes, jeans, and a faded t-shirt that smelled of engine grease and sea salt. I ran into someone from before, from Northwestern. I set down my brush. She remembered me, wanted to catch up, talk about art. That's good, isn't it? Making connections, rebuilding your network. It is, but it made me realize how much I gave up. I never finished my MFA. I had a thesis project planned, a whole series about grief and transformation after Hope died. But then I met you and I just stopped. Put it all aside to be your wife. Flynn's expression shuddered. I never asked you to give that up. No, but you assumed I would. And I did. Because that's what love looked like to me. Sacrifice and compromise and making my world smaller so it fit into yours. I turned to face him fully. I'm not blaming you, not exactly. But being here, starting fresh, I'm realizing how much of myself I lost in Chicago. Not just in your empire, but before that. When we were happy. What are you saying? I'm saying I want to go back to school. Finish my MFA. Not at Northwestern. I can't go back to Chicago. But Maine College of Art has a program. I could commute to Portland, work on my thesis, finally complete something I started. Relief washed over his features. That's what's bothering you? I thought... He laughed shakily. I thought you were going to say you were leaving. That this life wasn't enough. This life is everything. But I want to be more than just the woman you saved, the wife you rescued. I want to be Faith Morrison, artist. Faith Morrison, MFA candidate. Faith Morrison, person with dreams and ambitions beyond surviving. Then do it. He took my hands, squeezed gently. Apply to the program, chase your dreams. I'll support you however I can, financially, emotionally, whatever you need. This is your chance to reclaim what you lost, Faith. Take it. You mean that? Completely. I destroyed your life once. I won't do it again by holding you back from what you want. His smile was soft, genuine. Besides, I think Professor Morrison has a nice ring to it. You could teach after you graduate, share your talents with students who need guidance. The image settled into my mind. Teaching in a sunlit studio, helping young artists find their voices, building a career based on passion rather than survival. It felt possible. Real. Thank you, I whispered. For understanding. For not making this difficult. You gave me a second chance at life when I deserved nothing but your hatred. The least I can do is give you the freedom to be everything you were meant to be. I applied to Maine College of Art's MFA program in August, submitting a portfolio of work I'd created over the past year. Pieces about survival, transformation, the journey from darkness into light. The admissions committee accepted me for the spring semester, offering a partial scholarship based on the strength of my application. Flynn celebrated by taking me to the nicest restaurant in town, which wasn't saying much, but the lobster was fresh and the wine was decent. We toasted to new beginnings, to dreams deferred but not destroyed, to the future we were building together. "I'm proud of you," he said, raising his glass, "for fighting your way back, for not letting everything that happened break you." I did break, completely shattered. I clinked my glass against his. "But you helped me put the pieces back together, even if they don't fit quite the same way they used to. Better. They fit better now. More honest. More real." He reached across the table, laced his fingers through mine. "You know what I realized? When I was building my empire, running the organization, I thought power was the goal. Respect, fear, control. But this, sitting in a mediocre restaurant with the woman I love, celebrating her going back to school, this is real power. The power to choose the life you want. To build something good from the ashes of something terrible." Flynn Morrison, philosopher. I smiled. "Who knew you had it in you?" "I had a good teacher." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "You taught me that strength isn't about dominating others. It's about being brave enough to be vulnerable, to admit when you're wrong, to change." "I don't know about all that. Mostly I just survived." "You survived by choosing to live differently, by refusing to let my world corrupt you completely. Even when you had every reason to become bitter and hard, you stayed soft. That's revolutionary faith. That's strength I could never have." Fall arrived with spectacular color. Maple trees blazing red and gold, the ocean turning steel gray and tempestuous. I started classes in Portland 3 days a week, driving the hour commute through beautiful countryside while listening to podcasts about contemporary art theory. Flynn adjusted his schedule at the marina to accommodate my classes, taking evening shifts so we could still have mornings together. My thesis project evolved organically. A series of large-scale paintings exploring the intersection of violence and beauty, power and vulnerability. I incorporated elements from my past without being literal about it. Abstract forms that suggested poison and cure, darkness and light, entrapment and freedom. My thesis advisor, Professor Martinez, was brilliant and demanding. She pushed me to go deeper, to interrogate my comfortable aesthetic choices, to make work that challenged rather than soothed. It was exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. "You're getting better," Julia told me one afternoon, studying my latest piece in the graduate studio. "These are your strongest works yet. There's a rawness here that's compelling, like you're not afraid anymore." She was right. I wasn't afraid. For the first time since Hope died, I was making art from a place of strength rather than grief, drawing on everything I'd survived, the betrayal, the poisoning, the slow climb back to health, and transforming it into something beautiful and terrible and honest. Flynn came to my first critique, sitting in the back of the room while I presented my work to the faculty and my cohort. I'd been nervous about having him there, worried his presence would undermine my independence, make me seem like I needed his support. Instead, watching him watch me, his expression intent, focused, proud, I felt empowered. This was my domain, my expertise, my moment, and he was simply bearing witness to my triumph. Afterward, Professor Martinez pulled me aside. "Your partner seems very supportive." "He is. That's rare, especially for artists. Hold on to him," she smiled. "Your thesis is shaping up to be something special, Faith. There's a brutality in these pieces that's balanced by tremendous tenderness. Like you've seen the worst humanity has to offer and chosen to create beauty anyway." "Thank you. That means everything. Keep pushing. Don't let yourself settle for safe. The best art comes from the places that scare us." I thought about that on the drive home, Flynn's hand resting on my thigh while I navigated the darkening roads. about how the art that scared me most was the art that told the truth about who I'd been, what I'd survived, who I was becoming. "You were amazing today," Flynn said. "The way you talked about your work, defended your choices, engaged with criticism. You owned that room." I felt powerful. Is that strange? Not at all. You are powerful. You always have been. You just finally have a space where that power is recognized and valued. I couldn't have done this without you. The support, the space to heal, the encouragement to apply. Stop. He squeezed my thigh gently. You absolutely could have done this without me. You're doing it because you're talented and driven and brave. I'm just lucky I get to watch. Winter returned with the first snow in late November, transforming our coastal town into a wonderland. Tourism died completely, leaving just the 300 permanent residents to weather the cold months together. The marina closed for the season, giving Flynn time to focus on the cottage, building bookcases, refinishing furniture, creating a home that felt truly ours. I painted through the winter, working on my thesis pieces with an intensity that sometimes frightened me. The work was dark, visceral, dealing with themes I'd avoided my entire artistic career. Professor Martinez loved it. My cohort was divided. Some found it too intense, too raw. Others connected deeply with the emotional honesty. "Not everyone will understand your work," Julia told me over coffee in Portland. "Especially pieces this personal, this dark. But the people who get it will really get it. And those are the ones who matter." Christmas approached, our second in Maine, but the first where we felt truly settled. We bought a small tree from a local farm, decorated it with handmade ornaments from the craft fair. Simple, modest, worlds away from the opulent Christmases I'd experienced during my marriage to Flynn Carver. "This is nice," Flynn said on Christmas Eve, the two of us curled on the couch watching snow fall over the ocean. "Peaceful. Do you miss it? Any of it?" He considered the question seriously. "Sometimes I miss the certainty. Knowing I had power, could control situations, could protect the people I loved through force if necessary. But then I remember what that power cost. The compromises, the violence, the constant looking over my shoulder. And I know I'd never go back. Not even if I asked you to. Especially not if you asked, because the faith I love wouldn't ask me to become that person again. She'd only ask if something was terribly wrong, and I'd rather find another solution than resurrect Flynn Carver." I snuggled closer, breathing in his familiar scent. "I love you like this. Flynn Morrison, boat mechanic. My partner, not my protector. Equal, not emperor. I love you like this too. Faith Morrison, artist and graduate student. My partner, not my responsibility." He kissed the top of my head. "We're good at this, aren't we? Being normal people. We're getting better at it anyway. Better is enough. Better is everything." My thesis show was scheduled for early May, timed to coincide with the graduate exhibitions at Maine College of Art. I'd spent months refining the pieces, writing the supporting statement, preparing for the public presentation of my most vulnerable work. The week before the opening, Flynn helped me transport the paintings to Portland. We loaded them carefully into a borrowed van, drove through spring rain to deliver them to the gallery. Hanging the show was meditation and terror combined. Watching my work fill the white walls, seeing how the pieces talked to each other, created a narrative of survival and transformation. "It's powerful," the gallery director said, walking through the nearly complete installation. "Difficult, but powerful. Be prepared for strong reactions." The opening reception was packed. Faculty, students, local art community, and several gallery owners from Boston who'd driven up specifically for the graduate shows. I stood in the corner, watching people move through my work, trying not to obsess over their reactions. Flynn stayed at my side, steady and supportive without being overbearing. He'd dressed up for the occasion. Simple dark suit, no tie, hair neatly combed. He looked like what he was, a respectable man supporting his partner's artistic achievement. "Faith Morrison?" A gallery owner from Boston approached, extending her hand. "Margaret Chen, I wanted to tell you how moved I am by this body of work. The way you visualize trauma and healing, violence and beauty, it's extraordinary. Have you thought about representation?" My heart hammered. "I'm just finishing my MFA. I haven't really considered... Well, consider it now. I'd love to represent you, help you build a career beyond graduate school. These pieces deserve a wider audience." She handed me her card. "Call me after you graduate. Let's discuss possibilities." After she left, I turned to Flynn with wide eyes. Did that just happen? That just happened. And she's not the only one paying attention. He nodded toward a cluster of people studying my thesis statement. "You did this, Faith. Your talent, your vision, your courage to make vulnerable work. This is all you." Tears pricked my eyes. "Thank you for believing in me, for giving me the space to become this person. You've always been this person. I just got out of your way." The show received excellent reviews in the local papers and art journals. Margaret Chen followed up with a contract offer, representation in her Boston gallery, a solo show scheduled for the following year, connections to collectors and curators throughout New England. It was everything I'd dreamed of before my life had been derailed by Flynn's world. "I'm going to accept it," I told Flynn over celebratory lobster rolls. "The representation, the solo show, all of it." "Good. You should," he smiled. "Though it means you'll be busier. More time in the studio, meetings in Boston, networking events." "Will that be okay? Will you be okay with me having this kind of career?" "Faith." He set down his food, took my hand seriously. "I will be more than okay. I will be proud, supportive, and so grateful that you're building the life you deserve. You think I'd stand in the way of your success after everything we've been through? I think old habits die hard. Control, possession, wanting to keep me safe by keeping me close. Those habits died the day I walked away from the empire." His grip tightened. "You're not mine to control or possess. You're my partner, my equal, the love of my life. And whatever you want to do, wherever your career takes you, I'm coming along for the ride. Even if it's uncomfortable sometimes. Even if it means I'm just the supportive partner standing in the background while you shine. You could never just be in the background. Then I'll shine beside you." He raised his water glass in a toast. "To Faith Morrison, rising star of the contemporary art world. May all your exhibitions be sold out and all your reviews be glowing." I laughed, clinked my glass against his. "To Flynn Morrison, best boat mechanic in coastal Maine. May all your engines run smoothly and all your customers tip well." Now that's a life goal I can get behind. We drove home through the spring evening, talking about the future for the first time without fear or uncertainty. My career was launching. Flynn's past was truly behind us. We had a home, a community, a life built on honesty and hard work. "Hey, Faith," Flynn said as we pulled into our driveway, the cottage's lights glowing warm through the windows. "Yeah?" "I'm happy. Genuinely, completely happy. Are you?" I thought about the question seriously. Thought about everything we'd survived, everything we'd lost and gained and built together. Thought about the woman I'd been, naive and hopeful and so easily broken, and the woman I'd become. Scarred but stronger, wiser but not hardened, capable of loving deeply despite having every reason not to. "Yes," I said, "I'm happy. For real this time. No shadows, no secrets, no poison. Just us and the life we're building." Just this. Just this, Flynn echoed. Forever, if you'll have me. Forever sounds good. 2 years later, I stood in the Boston Gallery where my work hung. Not the hopeful graduate student anymore, but an established artist with collectors and critics who actually cared about what I created. My second solo show, Phoenix Suite, had opened to substantial attention. The pieces traced the arc from destruction to resurrection, from the poison that nearly killed me to the life I'd built from its ashes. Margaret Chen worked the crowd with practiced grace, steering collectors toward pieces they'd love, answering questions about my process and inspiration. I'd learned to be comfortable at these events, to talk about my work without revealing too much personal truth, to accept praise without diminishing my accomplishments, to network without feeling like I was selling my soul. Flynn stood near the back, letting me have my spotlight. He'd come up from Maine for the opening, leaving the marina in capable hands for the weekend. In 2 years, he'd transformed from mob boss to respected member of our small community, the guy who fixed boats, coached Little League, volunteered at the town's food bank. People who'd lived there for decades had no idea he'd once commanded a criminal empire. Sometimes I forgot too. Looked at him and saw only Flynn Morrison, the man who woke me with coffee and kissed my paint-stained fingers and built bookshelves that were slightly crooked but made with love. The past felt like a fever dream, something that had happened to different people in a different life. Faith, there's someone I'd like you to meet. Margaret appeared at my elbow with a distinguished older woman. This is Caroline Webster, curator at the Museum of Contemporary Art. She's very interested in your work. We talked for 20 minutes about artistic process, thematic development, how trauma informed aesthetics. Caroline was brilliant and insightful, asking questions that made me think about my work in new ways. When she left, she'd taken several cards and promised to be in touch about a potential group show at the museum. "You're doing it," Julia said, appearing with champagne. She taught at Boston University now, had her own thriving career. Building the career you were meant to have. It still feels surreal sometimes. That's because you're humble, which is rare in this world, trust me. She clinked her glass against mine. I'm proud of you. The work is extraordinary, but more than that, you seem happy, really, deeply happy. I am, finally. Is that the famous Flynn? She nodded toward where he stood, talking easily with another artist. He's not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know. Someone more intense, given how you've described your history. But he seems relaxed, content. He is. We both are. I watched Flynn laugh at something someone said, his entire posture open and at ease. We went through hell to get here, but we made it. The show sold well. 12 pieces to various collectors, 3 to the museum Caroline represented. Margaret estimated my career value had tripled in 2 years, that I was positioned to become a significant voice in contemporary art if I continued producing work at this caliber. The key is consistency, she told me over dinner after the opening. Keep making honest, vulnerable work. Don't chase trends or try to replicate others' success. Your strength is your unique perspective, your ability to transform personal trauma into universal statements about survival and resilience. Flynn and I caught a late train back to Maine that night, exhausted but exhilarated. In the darkened car, his arm around my shoulders, I felt the weight of years of survival lift just a little more. I have something to tell you, Flynn said quietly. I was going to wait until we got home, but I can't. Anxiety spiked. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. The opposite. He pulled out his phone, showed me an email. Remember how I've been working on that marine restoration project? Rebuilding vintage boats for the Historical Society? Yeah, you've been obsessed with it for months. Well, they want to expand the program. Create a nonprofit focused on teaching boat building and restoration to at-risk youth. They asked me to run it. Full-time position, decent salary, chance to actually help kids who are where I was at that age, angry, directionless, headed toward bad choices. I stared at the email, processing. Flynn, that's amazing. It's perfect for you. I'd have to give up the marina work. It would be a big change. And I wanted to make sure you were okay with it before I accepted. Why wouldn't I be okay with it? Because it means being more visible, more public. There's always a risk someone from the past could recognize me, could cause problems. His expression was serious. I've been Flynn Morrison, anonymous boat mechanic for 2 years. This would make me Flynn Morrison, nonprofit director. Featured in local papers, working with schools and community organizations. I'd be putting myself out there in ways I haven't since we left Chicago. I considered that. The risk was real, but minimal. Most of Flynn's criminal associates were in prison or dead. The survivors had no reason to care about a man who disappeared into coastal Maine. And this opportunity was exactly the kind of meaningful work Flynn needed. Work that used his skills while giving back, creating good from his knowledge of what went wrong in his own youth. Do it, I said. Take the position. Help those kids. Make your father proud wherever he is. Relief washed over Flynn's features. You're sure? Completely. This is your chance to build something that matters. Something good and lasting and helpful. Don't let fear of the past stop you from creating the future. When did you get so wise? Around the time I survived being poisoned and decided life was too short to play it safe. I kissed him softly. We've been hiding long enough. Time to live fully, not just safely. Tiwisnem, the nonprofit launched that fall. Lighthouse Youth Marine Program, based out of a renovated boathouse the Historical Society donated. Flynn threw himself into the work with the same intensity he'd once brought to running his empire, but channeled toward helping rather than harming. The first cohort of students was rough, 12 teenagers with varying degrees of behavioral issues, academic struggles, and family problems. Exactly the kind of kids Flynn understood because he'd been one of them. He taught them boat-building basics, while sneaking in life lessons about discipline, craftsmanship, seeing projects through to completion. I watched him transform again, becoming not just Flynn Morrison, but Mr. Morrison, mentor and teacher. The kids responded to his no-bullshit approach, his obvious expertise, his willingness to meet them where they were without judgment. By winter, 3 of the original 12 were talking about maritime careers, applying to technical colleges, making plans beyond just surviving. You're good at this, I told him one evening, watching him review college applications with one of his students, a kid named Marcus, who reminded me of young Flynn from the stories he'd told. Natural teacher. It's easier than I expected. Maybe because I'm not pretending to be something I'm not. I know what it's like to feel angry at the world, to think violence is the only language that matters. These kids see that I've been there and made it out. Do you ever tell them about your past? Not specifically. But I'm honest about having made bad choices, having been involved in things I'm not proud of. They don't need details. They just need to know that past mistakes don't have to define your future. He closed Marcus's application file. This kid is smart, Faith. Really smart. With the right support, he could do anything. But without it, he'll end up in the same kind of life I had. I can't let that happen. You're saving lives. You know that, right? Maybe not dramatically, but every kid you help redirect is a life saved. A family spared the grief. A community made safer. That's grandiose. It's true, and I'm proud of you. The man you've become, the work you're doing. This is who you were always meant to be. My third solo show, 2 years after the second, took a different direction. Instead of trauma and survival, I explored joy and contentment. What it meant to build a good life from broken pieces. The work was lighter, more colorful, though still with the emotional depth that had become my signature. Critics called it a natural evolution. Some preferred my darker work, found this new direction too optimistic. Others connected deeply with the themes of hard-won happiness, of choosing light after experiencing darkness. The museum that had included me in their group show bought 3 pieces for their permanent collection. "You're at a crossroads," Margaret told me during a studio visit. "You can continue working in this vein, becoming known for hopeful post-trauma work. Or you can push in a different direction entirely, risk alienating your existing audience for something new. Both are valid artistic choices. What do you think I should do?" "I think you should make whatever work you need to make. Follow your instincts, not market expectations." She smiled. "That's what's gotten you this far. Authentic response to your own life, not trying to manufacture what you think people want." I thought about that for weeks, wandering the beach in my studio, considering what I wanted to say next. The truth was, I'd wrung everything possible from my trauma. I'd mined those dark years for all the artistic value they held, transformed poison into beauty until the well ran dry. What came next? What did an artist make when the wounds had healed, the scars had faded, the crisis had passed? The answer came slowly. Art about normalcy, about the quiet miracle of ordinary life after extraordinary circumstances, about grocery shopping and bill paying and the profound joy of boring Sundays, about loving someone truly after almost destroying each other, about forgiveness, of others, of yourself, of the universe for being unfair. The new series took shape over 6 months. Large canvases in muted tones depicting simple domestic scenes elevated through composition and emotional resonance. A man fixing breakfast, a woman painting in afternoon light, 2 people reading on a couch. Moments so ordinary they became transcendent, suggesting that survival's final form was simply living well. Flynn was my primary subject, though abstracted enough that only I knew. His hands repairing an engine, his profile against ocean sunrise. The curve of his shoulders as he bent over a drawing with one of his students. Every painting a love letter to the man he'd become, to the life we'd built together. "You're painting me," he said, watching me work one evening. "Not you specifically, the essence of you, the piece you've found. It's beautiful, all of it." He came closer, studying the canvas. "Is this how you see our life? This quiet, this gentle?" "Most days. Sometimes I wake up and can't believe this is real, that we made it here from where we started." "Me too." He wrapped his arms around me from behind, rested his chin on my shoulder. "Sometimes I dream I'm back in Chicago, back in the Empire, making the same terrible choices. And I wake up in a panic until I remember, that's not me anymore. I left that life. I'm free." "We're both free." "Yeah, we are." 5 years after leaving Chicago, I was invited to give a talk at a contemporary art symposium in New York. It was a significant honor, speaking alongside established artists and theorists, discussing my work and process with an engaged audience. Margaret was thrilled, already planning the networking opportunities and potential gallery connections. Flynn came with me, his first time back to a major city since we'd moved to Maine. I worried about how he'd handle it, the crowds, the noise, the proximity to his old life. Chicago was only an hour flight from New York, after all. But he seemed at ease, curious and engaged as we explored museums and galleries between symposium events. "It's different than I expected," he said as we walked through the Metropolitan Museum. "Being in a city again. I thought I'd feel tempted, like I'd want that power back. But mostly I'm grateful we don't live here. Too intense. Too much of everything. Too many people. Too much stimulation. Too much pressure to be someone important." He squeezed my hand. "Our life in Maine is better, quieter, more real." My symposium talk went well. I spoke about transformation and resilience, about how trauma could be a tool for artistic growth without becoming your entire identity, about the importance of moving beyond victimhood into agency, of using art to reclaim your story rather than being trapped by it. The audience asked thoughtful questions. Other artists shared their own experiences of creating from pain, of the complicated ethics of making art from suffering. It was energizing and exhausting, the kind of intellectual engagement I'd craved during my years in Chicago's cage. Afterward, a young woman approached me, maybe 25, nervous but determined. "Ms. Morrison, I just wanted to thank you. Your work, your talk, it helped me understand some things about my own life, about how to take what hurt me and transform it into something that might help others." We talked for 20 minutes about art and healing and the courage it took to be vulnerable in public ways. When she left, Flynn said, "You're good at this. Teaching, mentoring, sharing what you've learned. Have you thought about doing more of it? More talks? More everything. Workshops, classes, maybe even teaching at the university level. You have something valuable to offer. Not just technical skill, but wisdom about how to make meaningful work from difficult experiences." The idea settled into my mind, took root. Teaching hadn't been part of my plan, but maybe it should be. Maybe this was the next evolution. Artist to teacher, using my hard-won knowledge to help others find their voices. "I'll think about it," I promised. Maine College of Art offered me an adjunct position that fall, teaching one class per semester on contemporary approaches to narrative painting. I was terrified the first day, facing 20 undergraduates who looked impossibly young, but found my rhythm quickly. Teaching came naturally, drawing on my own educational experience and artistic journey. Flynn loved hearing about my classes, the students and their projects, the questions they asked that made me reconsider my own work. His youth program continued growing too. They'd expanded to serve 40 students annually, with a waiting list and interest from other towns in replicating the model. "We're doing it," I said one night, grading student work while Flynn reviewed grant applications. "Building careers that matter, making a difference." "We're doing it," he agreed. "Together." 7 years after leaving Chicago, my mother, Flynn's mother, I reminded myself, called. She was in her 70s now, had sold the house in Chicago, and moved to Arizona after we'd left. We'd stayed in touch sporadically, careful conversations that skirted around the truth of why Flynn had left, what he'd been running from. "I'd like to visit," Camilla said. "If that's okay. I know you two have built a life there and I don't want to intrude. But I miss my son, and I miss you, Faith. I'd like to see you both." Flynn's expression when I told him was complicated. Love and guilt, and something that might have been grief. I haven't seen her in 7 years. Haven't told her the truth about what I was, what I did. "Do you want to tell her?" "I don't know. Part of me thinks she deserves to know. But another part wants to protect her from that truth. Let her remember me as the son she thought I was. Maybe ask her what she wants to know. Give her the option to ask questions or not." He considered that. She was my father's wife for 40 years. She lived through his drinking, his rages, the mysterious business dealings she pretended not to understand. She's tougher than she seems. Maybe she already knows more than I think. Camilla arrived in late September, when the leaves were turning and the ocean took on its autumn temperament. She was smaller than I remembered, more fragile, but her eyes were still sharp and knowing. She hugged Flynn for a long time, then me, not saying anything about the years apart or the questions that hung between us. We showed her our life, the cottage, my studio, Flynn's boathouse, and the boats his students were building. We introduced her to our friends, took her to our favorite restaurant, walked the beach at sunset. And slowly, without dramatic confession, she came to understand who we'd become. "I knew, you know," she said on her last evening, the three of us sitting on our porch watching the ocean, Not everything. Not details. But I knew your father's business was illegal, that you'd followed in his footsteps. I chose not to see it because the alternative was too painful. Flynn's hand tightened around mine. Mom, I'm not saying this to hurt you. I'm saying it so you know you don't have to carry that guilt. I made my choices, you made yours. And now you've made different ones. Better ones. She smiled at me. You saved him. Did you know that? He saved himself. I just gave him a reason to want to. However it happened, I'm grateful. My boy is happy, doing good work, living an honest life. That's all I ever wanted for him. She stood, kissed Flynn's forehead. Your father would be proud of who you've become, not the empire. That would have made him proud in all the wrong ways. But this, the teaching, the helping, the living with integrity, he'd weep to see it. I know I do. After she went inside, Flynn and I sat in the darkness for a long time, listening to the waves crash and rebuild, crash and rebuild. Do you think it's true? He finally asked. That my father would be proud? I think anyone who loved you would be proud. Look at what you've built from the wreckage. Look at the lives you've changed. Look at us. Look at us, he echoed. Who would have thought? The mob boss and the artist, living happily ever after in coastal Maine. It's not ever after yet. We still have years to go. Then let's make them count. Let's keep building, keep growing, keep choosing the light even when the darkness calls. He pulled me closer. Let's keep loving each other well, Faith. That's all that matters in the end. That we loved each other well. I leaned into his warmth, watching stars emerge over the ocean, feeling the cool. I leaned into his warmth, watching stars emerge over the ocean, feeling the cool autumn wind carry the salt smell I'd come to associate with home. We're doing that already, every day, every choice. Then we're already living our happy ending. Not an ending, a beginning that keeps beginning. He kissed the top of my head, and we sat there until the stars were too numerous to count, until the cold drove us inside to warmth and light, and the life we'd built from poison and lies and love that refused to die. 10 years after leaving Chicago, I received an email from an unexpected source. Detective Sarah Chen, the FBI agent who'd worked Flynn's case when he'd turned informant. She'd retired from the bureau, was writing a book about organized crime and its aftermath, and wanted to interview us about our experience leaving that world behind. Absolutely not, was Flynn's immediate response. We're not revisiting that. We're not putting ourselves back in the spotlight. But I was curious. What if it helps someone else? Someone trapped in that world, looking for a way out? They can find their own way. We don't owe our story to anyone. Maybe we do. Maybe that's the final transformation. Taking what happened to us and using it to help others make better choices. We argued about it for weeks. Flynn convinced it was too risky. Me increasingly certain it was the right thing to do. Finally, we compromised. We'd meet with Detective Chen, hear her out, decide together whether to participate. She came to Maine in spring, a woman in her 60s with kind eyes and a recorder she didn't turn on until we gave explicit permission. Over coffee in our living room, she explained her vision, a book examining what happened to people after they left organized crime, whether real transformation was possible, what factors contributed to successful reintegration versus relapse. Your case is remarkable, she said, looking between us. Flynn, you didn't just inform and disappear. You completely reinvented yourself, built something meaningful from nothing. And Faith, you survived an assassination attempt, rebuilt your health and career, chose to stay with the man who brought you into that world. That's a story worth telling. It's our story, Flynn said carefully. We lived it. What makes you think we want to share it with the world? Because someone out there needs to hear it. Someone trapped in an organization, thinking there's no way out. Someone who's been hurt by that world, thinking they'll never recover. Someone who loves someone in that life, wondering if change is possible. She leaned forward. Your story proves it is. That people can transform. That love can survive impossible circumstances. That building a good life after a terrible one is achievable. I looked at Flynn, saw the conflict in his eyes. He'd spent a decade becoming someone new, leaving Flynn Carver dead and buried. Resurrecting that name, even in service of helping others, felt dangerous. But I also saw something else, a willingness to consider it, to sacrifice his comfort for a greater good. We'll think about it, I said. Can you give us time? All the time you need. We talked about it for months, weighing privacy against potential impact, safety against responsibility. Flynn's youth program was thriving. They'd helped over 200 kids in 10 years, with a 90% success rate keeping participants out of the criminal justice system. My teaching had expanded to workshops across New England, helping dozens of artists find their voices and process their traumas through art. We were already helping people. Did we need to do more? I think we do, I finally decided. Not for fame or attention, but because our story is evidence that change is possible, that you can survive the worst and still build something beautiful. How many people need to hear that? Flynn sat with that for a long time. Then, okay, we'll do it. But on our terms, identities protected, location obscured, enough details changed to keep us safe. The truth without making us targets. Agreed. We spent that summer working with Detective Chen, now calling herself Sarah. Long interviews about our journey, the decisions we'd made, the moments that had defined our transformation. It was exhausting and cathartic, revisiting the past we'd worked so hard to leave behind. But it was also healing in unexpected ways, seeing how far we'd come, recognizing our own strength and resilience. The book was published the following spring. From Shadows, Stories of Redemption After Organized Crime. Our chapter was one of 8. Our names changed. Identifying details altered, but the emotional truth intact. Sarah had captured it perfectly. The betrayal and poison. The choice to save instead of condemn. The slow climb toward healing and purpose. Reviews were strong. The book became required reading in several criminal justice programs, was discussed in therapy circles focused on trauma recovery. We got messages through Sarah, people thanking us for our story, sharing their own journeys from darkness into light, telling us we'd given them hope when they had none. We did the right thing, Flynn said, reading through a letter from a woman who'd left her abusive relationship with a gang member after reading our story. It was scary, but we did the right thing. We usually do, eventually. I kissed his cheek. We just take the scenic route getting there. 15 years after leaving Chicago, the cottage had become truly ours, renovated and expanded, filled with memories and art, and the accumulated comfort of a long-shared life. My career had plateaued at a satisfying level. Regular shows, steady collectors, teaching that fed my soul. Flynn's nonprofit had become his legacy, expanding to 3 locations and serving over 100 youth annually. We'd built something good, something lasting, something that mattered. What do you want for your 50th birthday? I asked Flynn one morning, watching him make breakfast with the same careful attention he brought to everything. This, he gestured around the kitchen, at the life we'd built. Exactly this. Nothing more, nothing less. That's not a real answer. It's the truest answer I have. He brought me coffee, kissed my forehead. I have you, healthy and thriving. I have work that matters. I have peace. What else could I possibly want? Adventure, excitement, a sports car? I teased. Had all that. It almost killed us both. He sat beside me, laced his fingers through mine. This, boring Sundays and coffee on the porch and teaching kids to build boats, this is the adventure. This is the exciting part. Because we chose it. Because we built it together from nothing. I thought about the girl I'd been at 25, falling in love in a bookstore, thinking she'd found her fairy tale. Thought about the woman I'd been at 30, fleeing in the night from a nightmare she hadn't seen coming. Thought about everything between then and now. The poison, the betrayal, the slow reconstruction of trust and health and purpose. I love our life, I said quietly. Every ordinary, peaceful moment of it. Me too. Flynn raised my hand to his lips. Thank you for not giving up on me. On us. For choosing to stay when you had every reason to leave. Thank you for becoming someone worth staying for. Deal. He smiled. So no sports car? Maybe a new truck. The Honda's getting old. Practical as always. That's why I love you. Among other reasons. Among many, many other reasons. The poison had almost killed me. The Empire had almost destroyed us both. But we'd survived, transformed, built something better from the ashes of what we'd lost. Sitting on our porch that evening, watching the sunset over the Atlantic, Flynn's arm around my shoulders, and 20 years of marriage stretched behind us, I understood what we'd really survived. Not the poison in his empire. Not the betrayal or the violence or the slow death Salvatore had planned. We'd survived ourselves, our own capacity for darkness, our own ability to hurt each other, our own willingness to choose comfort over truth. And having survived that, having looked into that abyss and chosen light instead, we'd earned this peace, this ordinary, precious, hard-won life. I love you, Flynn murmured against my hair. I love you too. Always. Even when I was a monster. Especially then, because you chose to stop being one. He pulled me closer, and we watched the stars emerge over the water. The same stars that had watched over us in Chicago, in Seattle, through poison and healing, and all the years between. Constant and unchanging, even as we transformed beneath them. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For saving my life. You saved mine first. Then we're even. Better than even. We're free. And we were. Finally, completely, joyfully free.